There's a moment in life, maybe you've had it, when everything stops making sense. The stories you were told about life, meaning and purpose start to feel hollow. You look around and realize people are running in circles, chasing things that don't really exist. Success, validation, status. It all starts to seem like a game where no one knows who made the rules in the first place. For some, this moment is terrifying. It feels like stepping into an abyss where nothing matters. This is where nihilism takes hold. It strips everything down to a brutal conclusion. None of this means anything. There's no grand cosmic plan, no hidden purpose. And that realization hits like a tidal wave, pulling everything down with it. But for others, this moment is something entirely different. Instead of falling into despair, there's an overwhelming sense of openness, a deep recognition that meaning was never needed in the first place. There is no abyss, only the natural flow of life. Things simply are. And instead of being crushed by the weight of an indifferent universe, there's a clarity that removes the struggle altogether. This is non-duality. At first glance, nihilism and non-duality seem to be saying the same thing. Both question whether life has built-in meaning. Both strip away illusions people cling to. Both challenge the idea of a separate, personal identity. But where one leads to disconnection, the other reveals something that was always present. One leaves life feeling heavy. The other makes it effortless. One pulls everything apart. The other removes the struggle entirely. Imagine waking up and realizing that everything you've ever worked for, everything you've ever cared about, doesn't actually mean anything. Not in some poetic, hidden lesson way, just straight up, cold, indifferent nothingness. That's nihilism. It's the idea that life has no built-in meaning, no ultimate purpose, no deeper truth. It doesn't matter what you do because in the end, everything fades into nothing. For some, this realization feels freeing. No rules, no obligations, no expectations. Without a larger reason dictating their actions, they feel free to create their own meaning. But for many, it leads somewhere else entirely. To detachment, avoidance, or even despair. Because if nothing matters, why get out of bed? Why chase anything at all? This is where nihilism becomes a trap. It removes meaning, but it doesn't replace it with anything. It strips life down to its bare bones, leaving nothing but an empty, indifferent space. And that's where most people get stuck. They stare into the void, waiting for something to change, but nothing ever does. But what if the problem isn't that life has no meaning, but that meaning was never required in the first place? What if the struggle to find purpose was never necessary? What if reality, as it is already complete? Instead of saying, nothing matters, non-duality points to something entirely different. There was never anything to matter in the first place. Not in a hopeless way. Not in an indifferent way. Just in a way that removes the struggle completely. Think about a joke that makes you laugh so hard you forget yourself for a moment. The laughter erupts effortlessly. You don't stop mid-laugh to analyze whether it has a purpose. The moment is complete on its own, free from any need to justify its existence. Or picture the way a cat stretches in a sunbeam. Not because it's chasing an outcome, but because that's simply what happens. Now imagine a conversation where time seems to disappear. You're not thinking about what to say next. You're not questioning whether the interaction has meaning. You're just in it. That feeling of complete engagement, free from expectation or pressure. That's what non-duality points to. a way of experiencing life that isn't weighed down by the need for meaning. Nihilism makes existence feel cold and empty, but non-duality removes the need for answers altogether. And that's why nihilism often leads to despair while non-duality leads to peace. On the surface, they might seem to be saying the same thing, that meaning isn't built into life. But the way each perspective plays out is completely different. Nihilism takes meaning away and leaves nothing in return. It's like having the floor ripped out from under you with no safety net. Non-duality removes the need for meaning entirely, revealing that there was no floor to begin with, and no need for one. This is why nihilism often leads to detachment and emotional numbness, while non-duality brings a sense of ease. A nihilist might look at a blank canvas and feel nothing. What's the point? No matter what I paint, it won't mean anything. Someone grounded in non-duality sees the same blank canvas, but doesn't need it to have a point. They might paint, they might not, but either way, nothing is missing. The difference isn't in what's taken away, it's in how it's seen. Nihilism makes life feel like a burden. Non-duality makes it effortless. One of the biggest struggles people face when they lean into nihilism is emotional disconnection. When meaning is gone, emotions can start to feel like pointless noise, just chemical reactions firing in the brain. Over time, this way of thinking can lead to emotional suppression, where even joy feels distant, like something happening to someone else. Non-duality, on the other hand, doesn't reject emotions. It just removes the need to hold on to them. Instead of resisting sadness, it allows sadness to exist. Instead of clinging to happiness, it lets happiness come and go. Instead of over-analyzing feelings, it simply recognizes them as passing experiences. It's the difference between fighting a wave and letting it wash over you. One creates tension, the other allows things to move naturally. This is why non-duality doesn't result in detachment, but in clarity. Emotions don't need justification. They don't need to mean something in order to be felt. And when there's no struggle, no resistance, what's left? A kind of peace that nihilism never quite reaches. A common misconception about both nihilism and non-duality is that they lead to inaction. If nothing has meaning, if nothing truly matters, then why do anything at all? But nihilism and non-duality approach this in completely different ways. Nihilism sees no reason to act and gets stuck. Non-duality sees no reason not to act, so action flows freely. This might sound subtle, but it makes a huge difference. Think about breathing. You don't have to force yourself to inhale or exhale. It happens. Your body does it effortlessly, without needing permission. But if you start overanalyzing it, if you suddenly think, why am I even breathing? What's the point? You create unnecessary tension. Something that was once natural becomes difficult, even uncomfortable. Nihilism does this to life itself. The same thing happens with emotions. Nihilism treats emotions like a puzzle that needs solving. If life has no meaning, why should I care? Why should I feel anything? So emotions get ignored, suppressed, or dulled into nothing. Non-duality, on the other hand, doesn't turn emotions into a problem. Happiness, sadness, excitement, frustration, none of it needs justification. It all moves through effortlessly when there's no attempt to resist or control. This is why nihilism often leads to detachment, while non-duality brings clarity. Nihilism puts up a wall. Non-duality removes the need for one. Here's another way to look at it. Imagine music playing in the background while you're doing something. You're not consciously analyzing it. You're not questioning whether it has meaning. It's just there. But the moment you stop and ask, what's the purpose of this sound? What does it mean? The natural flow is interrupted. The music hasn't changed. Your relationship to it has. That's the point where non-duality turns into nihilism. Nihilism questions everything to the point of paralysis. Non-duality removes the conflict entirely. Life keeps playing, whether you analyze it or not. The difference isn't intellectual, it's in how it feels. One makes life heavy, the other makes it effortless. One creates resistance, the other removes it. One turns life into a burden, the other allows it to unfold naturally. Moving from nihilism to non-duality isn't about adding something new. It's about letting go of the struggle. No need to search for meaning. No need to fight against the absence of it. Just life, happening. Nothing is missing.